call this school board workshop into session at this time. The item number 2 will be the approval of the agenda and any changes to the agenda. And Miss Mary has given me a couple here, so let me go through these very quickly. There are some recognitions that we've added. Item 3.1, the proclamation of the National Education Support Professionals Day, presented by Superintendent Chambers. And then the superintendent's human resources recommendations, we've deleted item 8.7, employees suspension, presented by Dr. Hale. And so with those changes, then we'll call for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move it.
We'll do that tonight, but we'll give you
I'm
first
sorry.
shot.
I've lost where I am.
Don't worry, I think we've all done that.
I've done it several times.
Okay, I get the award for today. Okay, that's fine. I get the laugh for today.
All right. Anyway, we'll move on to section 3, recognitions. Will be 3.1, the proclamation of National Education Support Professionals Day, presented by Superintendent Chambers. That will bring us to section 4, administrative personnel appointments. 4.1, request to double fill the position of Director 1, Curriculum and Instruction, presented by Dr. Hale. 4.2, appointment of Director 1, Curriculum and Instruction, recommended by the Superintendent. 4.3, request to allocate Assistant Superintendent MIS, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent.
Dr. White, I
Yes,
have
sir.
a question or just a comment regarding 4.1 and 4.3.
Yes, sir.
As we are double filling and allocating a position here, Mr. Chambers, would it be okay to maybe just explain to the public a double fill and an allocation?
So, Ms. Perry, if you'd come forward, and I do want to just say to the board, as you know, we have 2 folks in the school district who will be retiring this year, and both unexpectedly.
Well, didn't you ask the attorney if he could find something in their contracts that
I
would,
was-
Definitely, there was we didn't have that loophole to force them to stay, but what this will allow us to do is to get some folks in place, have continuity in these positions, and have a good transition plan as we
That's wise.
go into the second semester and even more so into the next school year as well. So as it pertains to Mr. Bryant's question, Ms. Perry?
Yes, the double fill, the reason we're asking for a double fill is because Mr. Palmer would still be using leave in his position. So in order to have someone in that position, we're requesting to double fill it only with the cost that it would take to use his leave. And then the other one is an allocation.
And but
because
before you
it's-
go on to that one, Ms. Perry,
Uh-huh.
and so this particular situation, not to go too deep into details, however, the leave will go through the rest of this school year. So if we didn't have a person in that position, we would have no one in that position for the remainder of the school year.
And then the allocation is because that position does not exist.
Okay.
And it's needed for continuity. Okay. Anything?
No, thank you.
else?
And when these items come up like that, and those who might be watching that have never watched before, just kind of helps them understand why we have a double fill, why we have an allocation. So,
Yes, sir.
and totally agree that, the school district still has to function, even though somebody is retiring and does have some time built up in their leave and also.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perry.
Thank you, Dr. White.
All right, so that got us to 4.4, that was the appointment of the MIS Assistant Superintendent. All right, section 5.1 will be public comment. Section 6.1, Okaloosa Academy Incorporated Charter School Financial Statements and Supplemental Information, presented by Ms. Perry. 6.2, Destin High School Charter School Financial Statements and Supplemental Information, presented by Ms. Perry. 6.3, Risk Management and Insurance Update Report, presented by Mr. Frakes. Risk Management, and Insurance. And good morning, Mr. Frakes. I see you approaching.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Dr. White, before Russ
Yes, sir.
starts speaking, I would
Yes.
just like to comment in regards to our organizational meeting this morning. You know, I appreciate the vote of confidence being the trustee, but one of the things that I think separates us from our fellow members is that we have it where Russ actually comes and speaks before the board. And I appreciate the superintendent, you know, really putting risk management as one of his top
Absolutely.
priorities. So much, in fact, that other trustees have asked me, you know, how did you go about getting Russ to come up and speak
That's
at your
right.
meeting? So now quite a few more school
That's
districts are
correct.
actually having their risk manager come and speak about the things that we talk about in our quarterly meetings. So
That's correct. A lot of folks are applying that Okaloosa model in their districts and having some success in doing that. I speak with other risk managers around the state about that fact and just what the implications of that are. I think it's helpful to have that, number one, to engage our board and our superintendent in that conversation, and I think it's helpful all the way around we understand that risk management has there's a lot of crossover with a lot of the topics that come before the board. So I think it's important to have that sort of engagement there. So
well, and plus by you coming and talking about these things, it doesn't have my fellow colleagues kind of surprised when certain things arise,
That's
like
correct.
insurance cost and things
Absolutely.
like that. So.
Absolutely. And we're seeing that. We'll talk about that here in just a matter of fact. And just so that we reset this and so that everyone understands, when we talk about we hear FSBIT, we hear that name frequently. It's the Florida School Boards Insurance Trust, and of course, so that we can reset that, then make sure that anyone that may be tuning in understands that FSBIT is an organization affiliated with the Florida School Boards Association. Formed back in 1981, so it goes back quite a bit of history. It's essentially a self-insurance program, but they provide all manner of services to the school district and all the member school districts that are part of FSBIT. From claims administration, access to markets is one of those big things, one of those critical pieces. Going out there on the market and buying insurance. It's not a simple matter, as we'll see here in just a couple of minutes. But they also provide loss control services, adjust our claims, all those kinds of things as well. So it's an important relationship that we have there, and they feel a lot of needs for us. So let's talk about for a couple of minutes about the insurance market in general. And this is one of those things that occupies a lot of time at these quarterly meetings that we go to, and even in between, where we meet and talk about what our strategy is going to be as we approach that renewal. And this year, we started talking about that renewal even before we renewed this for the 23-24 cycle. So, and just because of what's going on with the insurance market, we understand that we've talked about in this meeting before, in this format before, the challenges that have arisen over the course of the past couple of years. We're in that continued hardening cycle. We enjoyed a good period of time of 11, 12 years of a soft insurance market, so decreasing prices over time. That pendulum has now swung, and there's a lot of reasons for that. So really, at its core, the law of supply and demand applies here, and there are a lot of constraints, a lot of reasons that the supply of reinsurance is constrained, and that's really what drives the price. You see it in your renewals and your homeowners insurance policies. Certainly in the state of Florida, you do. There's a lot of conversation about that, and it's because the reinsurance market is constrained. That's where the insurance companies go to buy their insurance. They're only going to take a certain level of risk, so they need that reinsurance to back them up, and that is where FSBIT goes to secure coverage. So we've seen that trend has continued. And really, when you're talking about reinsurance, there are global implications here. This is when you can't just look locally to say, well, we haven't had a hurricane here. We're impacted by what goes on globally. Everybody is. Everybody's going to the same place, and there is only so much insurance coverage to go around. Interest rates are a big impact on that. If a company can deploy capital in one market versus deploying it in reinsurance, securing risk, and earn a greater return, they're going to do that. So until some of those things start to change globally, you're going to see those constraints are going to continue. And we're applying some strategy, and we'll talk about that to try to make us less susceptible to those swings and the scarcity in the marketplace. So. Of course, we talked about the cat exposure that we have here, and we've got some loss history as well within the trust, where we've seen Hurricane Ian, and now Idalia has come in. Although some more, we'll talk about that here in a minute, with a little more success there with Idalia. But again, all of this just emphasizes the importance of that we have a strong risk management program. So, and I would remind you that we went from, just as an example of how all this has impacted us directly, we've seen that the total program that was put in place for the entirety of the trust went from $250 million program down to a $100 million program, just because the coverage just simply was not available. So we paid more, as you see there, with a 56.23% increase for less. We have almost $1 billion in total loss, in total insured value in this district alone. And here's the tactics that were employed here to try to combat the increases that we've seen were the Quill product that we talked about, that community weighted industry loss product that was something that was new to everybody in the trust. Nobody in the trust knew anything about this product 12 months ago. So that's something we've become familiar with, learned a great deal about, and have employed to try to control those costs. Also, treaty insurance is now being considered for this upcoming renewal because the cost now of the direct and facultative insurance, that standard insurance that we would typically see, has gotten to the point where treaty insurance, typically more expensive, is now competitive. So we're seeing some of these things come into play. Again, this $5 million, and we talked about this before, but I want to make a point about the $5 million in trust assets that were deployed. That's liquid money, reserves that were made available. And you see, this is a pretty complex looking chart here, and this is what we work on putting together each year. Each of those blocks represents a insurance contract with a company. The red blocks that you see there are that's FSBIT's money that was deployed, and I would point out that you notice that primary layer, but $25 million and below, that's some of the most expensive insurance that you're going to purchase in this scheme here that we were looking at. The first red block takes hold there at $25 million. So, in other words, unless the loss exceeds that $25 million mark, you're going to be safe. We saw in Adelia that the total losses for that catastrophe did not reach that $25 million layer. So that strategy of deploying that $5 million, in other words, rather than spending the premium dollar, we're putting at risk that $5 million. That strategy worked out this year. So, and when there's some discussion, is that going to continue? But I just wanted to make that point that that's something that a strategy that was employed that worked out, taking more risk into the trust and getting really into the risk business. So a good way to save money, but it's not without its risk. So it's worked out thus far. I would point out that in our most recent meeting, some excellent presentations were made. I just spoke with Mr. Dean there about the threat management model presentation that was made. Of course, there's some changes that are upcoming on that front that Mr. Dean has been involved in. Dylan Tetters and Gerald Powers from a couple of member districts did an excellent presentation on that. Want our risk managers to be engaged on that and know what's going on. Title IX training as well was done by Rob Sniffen, who many of you may be familiar with. He's done work for us. An excellent presentation there on Title IX and some other stuff on our liability, what's going on in the liability market with regard to claims. And then also a lot of discussion about our our certified risk managers program, where there's a designation that will be developed for risk managers in the state, an educational process to try to elevate the level of skill of all of our risk managers. As you can understand, many of them come from other areas of the district and may not have as much experience in the risk management field. So we've got a process to make sure that the skill level of all of those risk managers is brought up to a certain level. So there's a good deal of talk about that. That's something that's being created. Again, the actuarial report confirmed the strength of the trust. Talks about, views all our losses. That information, that's something that happens on an annual basis for us. And then we talked about updates with Hurricane Idalia and Ian, what's going on that front. Emergency Advantage was a great success. There was a new adjusting firm brought in, had a great deal of success there as well. The coordination of effort there, boots on the ground, getting those schools open back up as quickly as possible in Taylor County especially, and the FEMA element there as well. Funding, a good deal of discussion about funding, premiums, having that money available whenever you're needing to get schools open, and have a lot of pressure to do so very quickly. A lot of the business of the trust takes place during that fall meeting as well. So there were many of those committee meetings where some of the specifics were discussed, strategy for the upcoming year. And, of course, Mr. Stevens, as always, provided us with an update. And look, among other things, looked at our Vector Solutions trainings and see there we had a great deal of activity over here this most recent quarter. So we're looking great. Any questions? Any questions on anything we've discussed this morning?
So I do have a comment, if
Mhm.
that's acceptable, Dr. White.
Yes, sir.
So, yes, you talked about our fall meeting was very, a lot of business that went on.
Correct.
Of course, our spring one was really intense also
Yes,
because,
absolutely.
you know, being a trustee for this school district, there's a lot of weight that goes on with that because there's a lot of decisions that we've had to make over the last year that is going to have a direct impact on our school district and the other 11 trusts that are in there. But the one thing that I really enjoy when I go to these meetings is the committee reviews. And one of the committees that I'm on is the one that Amanda heads up there, which is the
Claims Review.
Claims Review Committee. And just to hear the collaboration between the risk managers, and there's a few of us school board members that are on there, but talking about how, you know, we can improve claims and all that, and they're really diving deep into these situations to help not just Okaloosa, but the other 11 members that are part of the trust. So I think it's, you know, really a great thing that the collaboration that we have amongst all 12 school
Yes,
districts helps
absolutely.
out, because Idalia, we had 3 of our members that were directly affected by this, and to see the response. We have more and more school districts that are wanting to join FSBIT, and unfortunately, we can't have them
Right.
join because of
All the reasons we just talked about, right?
Right.
Absolutely. yeah.
But they see how well it's
Yes,
working,
yes.
and so as a trustee, my report back to the board is that, you know, there's a lot of great things that are happening within FSBIT, but I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it.
It's tough.
It's going to be tough over the
Yeah,
next 2 years
absolutely.
for sure. So.
Tough decisions to be made,
Yep.
for sure. Absolutely. But with the strategies that are being employed, it'll put us in the best chance for success. So,
Yes.
absolutely.
Well, Mr. Frakes, I just
Yes.
want to say how much I appreciate, and I'm sure my colleagues feel the same way, the job that you're doing in this domain that we call risk management
Right.
for a reason.
That's right.
Because
Correct.
it is risk, and there
No way
is
around it.
management.
You've got to manage it.
That's right. And so just
Absolutely.
thank you for all that,
Yes, sir.
all that work.
Happy to do it.
I'd like
Well-
to see you on a state board with the homeowners insurance, if you can do something to help our homeowners insurance.
There's a lot
as
of,
we
there
just
is, there will be, I'm
received.
sure we will see a lot of conversation upcoming about that
I
very
mean,
topic, for a good
I-
reason.
yeah.
A lot of people are feeling
Exactly,
that.
exactly.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Frakes. All right, colleagues, so that brings us to section 7. That'll be the consent agenda. 7.1 approval, 7.2 approval of the minutes of the workshop and of the regular school board meeting on October 23rd. 7.3 appropriation of District 1 school board member capital outlay funds to Shalimar Elementary School for clear touch panels in the amount of $10,000 presented by Lamar White. 7.4 appropriation of District 2 school board member capital outlay funds to Fort Walton Beach High School for portable projectors in the amount of $4,490 presented by Ms. Gardner. 7.5 appropriation of District 3 school board member capital outlay funds to Edge Elementary School for clear touch panels in the amount of $6,234 presented by Ms. Evancheck. 7.6 appropriation of District 4 school board member capital outlay funds to Shalimar Elementary School for clear touch panels in the amount of $4,025.50 presented by Mr. Bryant. 7.7 appropriation of District 5 school board member capital outlay funds to Shalimar Elementary School for clear touch panels in the amount of $4,025 presented by Dr. Kelly.
I'd like to make a comment about those you just went over.
Sure.
Notice that every one of the board members had an item. And I just want to remind the public that we do that, and many times it's not a school in our assigned zone that we help. And that's part of it, is trying to help any way we can, and sometimes we go together on costs, so to split the costs so that we can provide that school with what they need. And these panels you're hearing about, while it's great technology, are not cheap. And sometimes it takes us kind of going together to be able to provide that. But just wanted the public to recognize that the board members work hard to fill those needs as best we can in the capital outlay.
Do we receive more money second semester if we're already out?
Well-
We have been,
Ms. Perry's looking at you like, what?
Well, Dr. White, I would agree that we are a team when it comes to these things, but Clear Touch panels are definitely the hot topic of the year.
Absolutely.
But I do appreciate Mr. Chambers, in my conversations with him, and I know all of you probably have had the same conversations because it is such a ongoing request this year that they are looking at how we can incorporate it in the budget next year so all the schools can
and
get
it's just
some.
so hard
Yeah.
now that we've got so many requests, and from throughout the district, that is,
But they
have to
are
say,
awesome.
I'm out of
They are
money.
awesome.
They are awesome.
Yeah.
I'm low.
Well, and I think we all know that these days, technology for these kids is critical.
It's
I mean,
critical
if
and
we-
expensive.
I mean,
Critical and
yeah,
expensive.
it's critical and expensive.
And
yeah.
the repair and
All right.
upkeep.
Okay, so that brings us to 7.8, request to advertise a public hearing for the adoption of revised school board policy 03-05, procedure for handling criticism of library books or educational material, presented by Ms. Tasha Bates, District Media Specialist, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.9, request for authorization to schedule and advertise a public hearing to receive public input and consider final approval of the proposed purchase and sale agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Ruckle Properties Incorporated, a Florida corporation, presented by Dr. Smith. 7.10, request to authorize and to schedule and advertise a public hearing to receive public input and consider final approval of the proposed exchange agreement to acquire Deer Moss Creek property in Niceville, Florida, between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Ruckle Properties, a Florida corporation, presented by Dr. Smith.
And Dr. White, if you don't
Yes, sir.
mind, I would like to say on these two items, it's a continuation of what we've been doing in terms of looking at land throughout our county, whether it be at the north end of the county, which we've done, looking at what we've done in the Destin area and in the Niceville area. You know, we know right now that the vast majority of our schools are over capacity, even though population, we're kind of flat in terms of where we are. But again, this positions us in a place for the future to do what we need to do when the time comes, if we need to do new schools in these areas. And Niceville is just another example of that, being diligent with land purchases.
Yes,
Thank
sir,
you.
and I was going to say that I hope the public is realizing that, you know, with your leadership and with the board, that we are looking to the future. I know that in the past, some have indicated that we haven't done that, but that they'll see that we are. And of course, when it comes to land, can't make any more of it, and so it's important that we go ahead and acquire it, even not knowing exactly what the plans are, but of course, we need to have that land as we move forward. So I'm glad to see that you and the district, along with, you know, us approving it, is looking years ahead as we're moving forward, because that's been our goal with the sales tax and everything, is to move our district forward, and we're doing that.
And I appreciate those words. And what you'll find out in December is we will actually do more of a presentation on land to the school board and for the public, where we'll kind of share where we are, what the plans are going forward, and just a little bit more, or a lot more in detail in the December board meeting.
Great.
All right, very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ms. Evancho. All right, so that brings us to 7.11, invoices to be approved for payment, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.12, school donations, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.13, authorization to appropriate federal impact aid funds and make a payment in the amount of $13,610 to charter schools, presented by Ms. Perry. 7.14, ITB 24-01, HVAC equipment and parts, facilities and maintenance, presented by Mr. Vince Wyndham, Program Director Purchasing, and recommended by the Superintendent. 7.15, tag-on bid purchase over $50,000, Musco Sports Lighting, presented by Mr. Wyndham, recommended by the superintendent.
And I
Seth?
would say,
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
White,
Yes,
just
sir.
for the board and the public, this is a continuation of what we're doing in all the fields, throughout the district. We've already done a number of them already, but this is a continuation of that process of getting up-to-date lighting in all of our facilities, specifically the sports fields in this case.
And Superintendent, appreciate that so much, and y'all, I just have to tell you, that lighting's important. I remember when I'd go out there and flip the switch. And you want them to come on.
That's right.
And not to go off. So, thank you for that, very much. All right, 7.16, tag-on purchase over $50,000, Critical Response Group, presented by Mr. Vince Wyndham, Program Director Purchasing, and recommended by the Superintendent. 7.17, renewal of tag-on bid, annual agreement for portable moving services, presented by Mr. Wyndham, Program Director. 7.18, exempted purchase over $50,000 for Brain Pop, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent. 7.19, amendment to service agreement number 24-90, Kiara Watson Video LLC, presented by Mr. Vince Wyndham, Program Director, Purchasing, and recommended by the superintendent. 7.20, renewal of fuel purchasing agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Okaloosa Academy, presented by Mr. Vince Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent. 7.21, sale and disposal of surplus property, presented by Mr. Bolton and recommended by the superintendent. 7.22, surplus salvage and dispose of one portable building, school board owned, tangible property, in accordance with Florida law, presented by Mr. Bolton and recommended by the superintendent. 7.23, joint use agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the Okaloosa County Board of Commissioners, presented by Dr. Bill Smith, Program Director, Facilities, and recommended by the superintendent. 7.24, Triumph Gulf Coast Application Grant Request, presented by Mr. John Williams, Director, Okaloosa Technical College, and recommended by the superintendent for approval.
Dr. White, I see that Mr. Williams is out in the audience today. I just wanted to personally thank him for all his work in pushing this item here. And I know a lot of good things are happening with the technical college and its future. So appreciate you being out there today in support.
Yeah. And for all this work to expand the program. Thank you. It's awesome.
And I think this board knows, obviously, we have the OTC in the south end of the county, and this is Mr. Williams. I'm having a vision and working with our community partners we shared last time, such as Nathan Sparks with One Okaloosa and others, to bring this type of an opportunity to the north end of the county
Yep.
for students, for adults. And again, his visionary leadership is absolutely appreciated, and really being progressive and trying to make a difference in the north end as well.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. All right, 7.25, Okaloosa County School District Legislative Priorities, presented by Mr. Steve Horton, Deputy Superintendent, and recommended by the superintendent. And I read these with great interest. And also I noted, I see Mr. Frakes there, that insurance even appeared on one of
Absolutely.
those priorities. So, colleagues, any questions or comments about superintendent about the priorities?
So what I'd like to do at this time is
Okay.
have Mr. Horton come up and
Sure.
kind of go through these.
Yeah.
But what I would like the board to know, prior to this is, so as a senior staff, we put a lot of time over the last several months, what are going to be the legislative priorities for Okaloosa County. And so we've had a lot of conversations, and we kind of pared it down into 3 categories, and that's recruitment and retention, especially of our teachers. Then looking at funding for safe schools, academic excellence, and healthy students and staff. And then reduce regulation in public schools.
Yes.
So, a lot of conversation, like I said. But what we would like to do, if this is approved by the board and there's a resolution in place, then afterwards, we will meet with each of our local legislators and sit down with them one-on-one to go through this and speak with others as well. So last year, you remember, we were fortunate to have legislative priorities that we had in Okaloosa. I think we saw that a few of them came to be in legislation. And sometimes folks think, it doesn't really matter. The folks in Tallahassee are going to do what they want to do. But I think we learned last year by going through this process and having good communication with our local legislators that it does in fact matter to speak to them. And the group that's in place right now, very attentive. They listen to us, and I don't mean that we tell them what to do, but they have an ear to listen to what we have to say here in Okaloosa County and absolutely appreciate them for that leadership. Mr. Horton?
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. And just take a moment to go through some of these priorities, and I'll paraphrase some of them. I know that some of them may need some explanation, but the first set on recruitment and retention follows up on our efforts last year, and I think that's still a big issue throughout the state of Florida. And appreciate Senator Broxson and the legislators for the actions they took last year. These are some of the pieces that are still in play that we're going to be speaking to them about. The first, just kind of as an overarching statement, but the second one is still trying to work on that retirement from drop. Drop was extended from 5 to 8 years for educational employees this past legislative session. We'd like to just remove the 1 year sit-out timeline for those folks. I think law enforcement has that removed in statute, so to have educators that may be at the end of their drop but still want to teach. Sometimes you plan in advance and you're going to be done, but then all of a sudden you think you still got more in you. So asking to extend that, remove that requirement to sit out a year so that it doesn't impact their retirement.
Mr. Horton, real quick, Dr. White, if it's okay. Didn't this pass last year where if somebody was to retire and they didn't take any of their retirement, that they only had to wait out for 6 months?
There's been some change in that
Yes.
piece, and they could come back into the schools, so we want to remove that completely so
Right.
you can come back to work immediately the following year. Because that's in the classroom, that's a tough situation where you're out the first half of the year, then able to come back, but you're right.
Well, I just really hope that if there's anything that they can do about this, that they will. I mean, all you have to do is look at the number of unfilled teaching
Shortage, yeah.
positions in our county and surrounding counties, and I can't even imagine what that number must look like for the state of Florida. Maybe that's the number of the staff could garner.
Right.
To show the legislators that this is a serious issue, and if we can keep these folks in their current position, that would just be great. We're all benefiting from that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They couldn't even volunteer for a while, right? Couldn't even come back and
Nope,
volunteer?
they didn't want you to
Correct.
walk in.
Correct. So
That's
some of
crazy.
that's been addressed, but we
Yeah.
really want all those restrictions removed.
Yeah.
That would be an
That's
ask.
great.
The second one, for those of us that have been in education, a self-contained exceptional student education classroom. A teacher could have a integrated curriculum certification for that and be able to teach in field in all of those areas, academic areas for the students, and that was removed several years ago. And so now a teacher has to hold individual certification in all those core areas to be able to teach those students. And we believe that we've got quality teachers who are in there that could have that integrated certificate and do a great job in those situations. And so we're asking for that integrated curriculum certification to be reinstated and permitted for those situations.
That's already a scarce position to begin with. And in fact, the legislature at one time, perhaps they still do, even provided tuition assistance for folks to go back and become ESE certified. And now we require them to be certified in every content area. That's a little much, frankly.
And if you think about a school, and you know this, Dr. White, you have a teacher that you're hiring that may be trying to get those
Right.
certifications, and in that first year, you're able to teach out of field where you're trying to do that, but then that second year comes around, you no longer can do that. So you're
Right.
talking about now continuing this cycle of moving teachers out of those positions that are of critical need and importance, and we want to keep those folks in there.
Which 9 out of 10, they were doing a good job in.
Right.
But
Right.
you're having to move them anyway.
Yes, sir. The next bullet kind of speaks in some part to that, but providing the opportunity for teachers, again, because of the shortage of teachers that's experienced across the state, providing the opportunity for highly effective teachers to be out of field up to 3 years. And so if you're going through an evaluation process, and you're going through a district professional development, professional learning process, and you're highly effective, to be able to stay in a teaching role out of field up to 3 years because you've demonstrated your strength as a teacher through a district evaluation and what's going on at the HR level with professional learning. There have been reading renewal requirements for recertification that have become, I was out having some dinner with friends, and a teacher brought it up to me after we had already seen and put this on the list, but there are reading renewal requirements that are placed on teachers for recertification that I think are probably done in good faith and in the sense that we want to have quality educators for our students, but it's become onerous for teachers to be able to complete the different renewal requirements that they are. It's also on administrators as well, and ESE. So on top of what's required of ESE teachers for recertification, they've got to do a reading renewal requirement as well to be considered in field. So it's something that Dr. Hale knows specifically about because he deals with the employees and the schools all the time. But I do know that it is a burdensome requirement at this point in time. The final one in that section is allowing for any advanced degree earned by instructional staff to be eligible for salary supplement. So there's a specific line in statute that if a teacher has a master's degree in ed leadership or a master's degree in instructional technology and they're teaching an English class, that they're not eligible for a salary supplement because their degree, their advanced degree is not exactly English. You could have a master's degree in curriculum and not be eligible to receive a salary supplement. And again, in a time and age we're trying to help keep teachers employed and help give them the funds that they need. It's a part of the statute that we'd like to have removed, and we talked about that last year.
That's right, and colleagues, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is important. And when we want folks, particularly teachers, to become school administrators and to gain that degree in ed leadership, for example, that will allow them to do that, but then turn around and say, but if you go do that, we're not going to pay you for it. That doesn't help us. That's a disincentive.
Well, and this just kind of hit because there's a program for years that I have been volunteering with, and there's a young man, he's a teacher at Fort Walton Beach High School, and he and I started, and he always, year after year, volunteers, and he brings his young men from Fort Walton Beach High School also. And he asked me about why his, it's not being paid for his master's, and I think Dr. Hell, but a perfect example is that this young man went back and received a master's degree in education, curriculum, and instruction. And this is an individual we need to keep in our school. The respect those children have, what this young man does, and we're not here to support him for this master's degree. It's an individual I'd hate to lose, but thank you, Dr. Hell, for reaching out and explaining to him. So as you said, if there's anything that we can do to help our employees that have gone on for these additional degrees.
Yes, ma'am, and I did reach out to
Yes.
Coach, and he does understand how the law does read right now. But I would just like to add one additional layer. As we continue to recruit across the business world, there are a lot of very educated people that are used to making a particular salary where every piece of recruitment material helps, and they may not necessarily have their MBA or their Juris Doctorate or their other type of degree in a certificated area, which is technically what the holdup is. If you don't have the ability to be certified specifically in the area that your transcript mentions, then you're not going to be eligible for that supplement the way that it reads right now. So I'm very happy to be moving this forward again next year, because this is a recent change. This was, I believe, I'm going to guess, I'm not going to get this exactly right, but around the 2011 to 2013 time frame is where that kind of went away. It used to be supplemented.
Well, we
And-
did. If I remember, we paid $1,000 more for folks that had a master's degree, for example, on the salary schedule. And it didn't matter what the master's was in, and we had different levels depending. But what that allowed us to do was to have teachers to garner degrees that could be useful to them later, and certainly useful to us if they became principals in our schools.
And
Yes,
they
sir.
have loans, or they've had to pay
Yeah,
for
it's
these
so
courses that
expensive
are expensive,
to get
so
the
we're
masters.
penalized, exactly.
And 1,000 wasn't very much, frankly.
And we, you know, we don't want to spend too much time talking about database research in this area, but it's clear that content-related expertise and additional education is very high on Hattie's list of factors. And so we know that it matters, and we know that someone that has a master's in curriculum and instruction is going to have a pedagogical advantage over someone who doesn't, and so it just makes sense.
Well, putting a name, a face, and talking to this individual just really made this just
Yes, ma'am.
come to life.
Thank you, Dr. Harrell. The second section there is about the funding piece, and I'd always say that we're very appreciative of all the funding that comes from public education. I believe that in a biased methodology, that the public education is the #1 priority and should be funded as such in the state of Florida. And so when we ask for things, I think it's, in our intent, it's thoughtful, and understanding that there are priorities that all the legislators have, but appreciative of what we receive. So I would say that we want to make sure, and we'll talk to the legislator about this. I think last year, FES and the explosion of family empowerment scholarships was a thing last year that I don't know if everyone had their arms wrapped around it last year, because there was discussion about separating family empowerment scholarships completely from the Florida Education Finance Program, which is the model that school districts operate with, and separating it completely, and doing so in a way that does not penalize school districts and public K-12 education. So that's the emphasis of some of these pieces. The first one just asks for ensuring that equalized funding exists. And, Ms. Perry, with the numbers in finance, it's the statement that she made and we made last year was the amount of funding that we received per unweighted FTE per full-time student was less than the amount of funding that was received for a family empowerment scholarship student. Okay? And I don't know that was intended, but that's the way it worked out through the proration process and everything. So on the first blush, we want to make sure that the school districts and the students per unweighted FTE are funded the same as the family empowerment scholarship students. That's the first thing. The second thing is to remove the family empowerment scholarship calculation and funding completely from the FEFP model. I think this year, and Julie's much more literate in this than I am, this year there's a hold harmless amount that's been placed in the FEFP to help school districts be held harmless for any negative impact to the family empowerment scholarships. We'll see how that kind of plays out when we get through our different surveys. I think the other thing with this is whenever you're asking for more money somewhere, there's the understanding that don't take it from here to give us more here. So we've been through a period of 3 or 4 years where there's been a great emphasis, and rightly so, placed on mental health and student services and all the supports that we can provide students. And that has created an infrastructure in many school districts, not just Okaloosa, with respect to behavior analysts and interventionists, with respect to increased mental health counselors, and those positions cost money. And so the ask for the legislature, and I know that the First Lady's emphasis on resiliency is well known throughout the state of Florida, but to make sure that they do everything they can to maintain the level of funding that helps school districts keep that infrastructure in place. So the behavior interventionists, the behavior analysts, the social workers, the mental health counselors, to make sure those folks are in place for us without a noticeable decrease in funding somewhere else. And that's a big ask. It is. And as we do every year, we like to ask for increased funding support for the maintenance of safe school officers in every school. As you know, we've got 2 in our high schools in Baker. We have 1 every school, and great partnership with the sheriff's office. But do want to continue to support the request for more funding for those positions to make sure we maintain the best SRO program in the state. Okay. The last couple under that area, one of them, Dr. White, you alluded to, legislation that helps fund the first $25 million of each individual Florida school district's losses due to a named weather event. As Russ, I didn't even plan this, but as Russ said, I think that policy there is very costly. And if we can get some help with that level of coverage, that when you go out and get insurance for anything above, the rates start to drop significantly. And so
It's like
that's
a
something that would be,
deductible.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right, that's right. It would be a big help and a big support to school districts, and I know that's something that was coming out of FISBIT and other groups across the state. I jumped over one at the top. As you know, we've got it's now named the Chris Hickson, Coach Aaron Feist, and Coach Scott Bagel Guardian Program, and we have that in Okaloosa County. As you know, we've had it for many years in Okaloosa County. There's a provision in the statute that's a little bit unclear as to whether or not the Guardian program could exist at a district facility where students are not enrolled. And so we're asking them to take a look at that because I think the district office spaces that we have in terms of having our employees feel safe and secure, I think it's valid to be able to look to have a guardian at those locations. Now, keep in mind, a guardian is a program that requires a thorough process of evaluation through the sheriff's office and training that is actually, in terms of hours, I think more than some of the school resource officer training is. So it's a very thorough process, but I think one of the things we'd like to do is to get the clarification that could also occur at a district facility, is not just a school building.
Just the fact if they change the law to say that it might
Yep.
be possible, that would be a deterrent.
And then the last section on reducing regulation in public schools, and I think it's important because that's kind of a buzzword, deregulation, and then what does it really mean? How are we going to ease the burden on schools and teachers and classrooms? And so the Department of Education was tasked last year to create a list of deregulation topics that they submitted to the legislature on November 1st. So we're in support of those, and I'll give you some examples of things that are out there that might work, that might be under there. Some of these that some of the senators have proposed themselves go back to that first section about retention of employees. So some of the deregulation pieces about what we're requiring of teachers to do to maintain their certification. So there's one of the senators out there supporting if an employee is finishing their 5-year certificate and has been highly effective in 4 of those 5 years, then they'd be eligible for a 10-year certificate renewal. And then more time to get their in-service points, and not a doubling of in-service points, but the same number. And so those sorts of things that would provide a little bit of deregulation. And if you think about that, that's longer time for teachers to get recertified. That's probably less work for human resources to get that piece of it done. So that's an example. Another one would be, I talked to Ms. Dale this morning, removing restrictions on Title I that would allow for more flexibility in providing teachers with, to reward them in eligible schools. And I think Amy shared with me that they were able to do that across all schools, all Title I schools to some extent, but she talked with her Title I person at the state level and some deregulation in how the state is allowing us to use our Title I funds, though they're federal, but there's state statute that governs some of what we do there, that it would be helpful to help teachers. There are many reporting requirements that are placed on school districts, whether it's financial, whether it's highly performing school districts have to submit a report to the state every year. And so I think if you look at the DOE list of deregulations, there's several reporting requirements that they say are either, the general idea is they're either already available on a state portal, right? Or instead of having a school district have to advertise something in a newspaper, if it's on its website, then that might serve as proper notice. So 20 or 30 pages of those kind of things that would just kind of reduce the amount of day-to-day paperwork that districts have to do. Mr. Chambers, do you have any?
And I would just say, in kind of summarizing these 3 areas, so when you look at recruitment and retention in Okaloosa County, and right now across all 67 school districts, right now, there's a substitute in a classroom that is being filled because there was a vacant position. So a substitute is doing that. As much as we appreciate our substitutes, as much as we appreciate them, we want to see a certified teacher in there with students. Right now, there's a paraprofessional who's covering a class, and now that paraprofessional is not able to do what they signed up to do. So you look at all of these things that are happening right now in public education. I think we want to create an environment where we can not only receive teachers and staff and administrators, but also keep them. So the things that we can do legislatively, you see here. And then, of course, there's things that we do just as a school board to be able to recruit and retain teachers as well. When you look at the family empowerment scholarships, I think support parents for to have the right to have choices in their child's public education. But I know here we believe very strongly in our schools and public education. And I think if you look at the data as it pertains to family empowerment scholarship students, the vast majority of these students never set foot in the school systems. They're already either homeschool or they're already in private schools and receiving this funding. So to be able to provide this opportunity for students and families is great, but not to a reduction of funding coming to public schools. And then the last thing I want to say on the deregulation, I think this is the new buzzword, but from the Department of Education to the Superintendent's Association as well as the School Board Association, really looking at how do we remove burdensome, time required reports and other areas that may not be as necessary. It's just something that we've always done. So being able to do that, to provide time back to school districts, I think is a big deal. Again, this legislative process is something that we take seriously, which is why we take time to go through this here, talk to folks about these priorities, and then again, we will meet individually with each of our legislators to talk about these items and hoping to get a number of these passed into legislation. And you all may have some words as well.
I have
Mr.
comments.
Brown.
So, of course, being the legislative liaison for the school district, and I know my colleagues all have relationships with our representatives and senators. I will just say that deregulation, like you said, the buzzword is a top priority across 67 school districts. I will say that House Bill 1 was passed with some talk between the House and the Senate regarding deregulation, and I will tell you that the House is going to need some encouragement. The Senate is really behind this. Senate Leader Pasadomo is really behind this. This is her thing, and I will just say to my colleagues, once we approve this, if we approve this legislative, get it in the hands of our elected people. And if you have relationships with elected people across the state outside our district, make sure to get it in their hands. I truly believe that it's an election season, so the session's going to go by quick. But we really need to encourage our House representatives to get behind this, because the Senate is the one that's really pushing it. It's the House that we need to get them behind. And so that would be my encouragement, being the legislative liaison for our district, is get this into their hands, and have those conversations with them so we can get this through.
And Mr. Bryan, I want to ask you, being on the Florida School Board, so is that what the School Board Association, does this pretty much look the same as what they're backing?
For the most part, the dereg is obviously where 67 school districts, we can all agree on this, and as the organization itself, we try to focus on things that all 67, well, there's 65 members of FSBA where we can all agree on it. In today's political environment, even within the Florida School Boards Association, you're always going to have differences of what we should be driving. And in my opinion, the Florida School Board Association is more of a tool for school board members to be better school board members. There's a lot of educational tools in there. But as far as advocating, I truly believe that we try to advocate for the things that we can all agree on as a whole. And deregulation is definitely one that we are really pushing, so, as an organization.
Well, and so people understand the dereg, as you called it, I like that term. It's just requesting the same flexibility that our charter schools and other schools are receiving. And I think that's so important, that when we say deregulation, that's exactly what we're asking for.
Well, and this has also, been a topic over the last, I've been on school board for 7 years, about, leveling the playing field. So, and I think this is fair, you know, and as much
Absolutely.
as we all appreciate and support school choice,
Level
you
the
know,
playing field.
you know, local control and having an equal playing field, I think is only fair.
And
So-
anything we can do to recruit and keep these teachers, I mean, that is, and especially in the time that we are facing, it only makes common sense. I don't understand.
I think there are 57 days till the legislative session opens.
Yep.
But I know there are committee meetings and things happening right now, so I think it's important that the superintendent brings this to you in November so we can get it off to those folks and get those meetings set up before they come into session.
Yeah, after this week, they'll be out for a couple of weeks with the holidays, and also this is a good opportunity. And we're fortunate because, you know, Representative Maney, you know, came and visited a few schools with the superintendent and myself just to get them into the classrooms and see what is transpiring in the classrooms, you know. So when they go to Tallahassee, they got a visual. They've actually been in the classroom. And I'm not saying that all of our legislators don't have an opportunity to get into the classroom, but a lot of them don't have educational experience. And someone like me who did not have educational experience, it was important for me to learn the process. And I think that's where we can come in as a board members, is getting folks into the schools to see what exactly is going on. You know, we have Richburg and Silver Sands. These are schools that, you know, that a lot of legislators don't realize we have those schools, you know, and, you know, as much as I'm proud of those schools, and I know my colleagues are, you know, a lot of the mentality is that everybody's general ed, and that's not the case, you know, so.
Well, and I think, and you mentioned if our public and our parents truly understand this, I mean, their voice is important too, because they know that people, legislate, people in our community, people that will be speaking in Tallahassee. So I think this is excellent, that's been put
And to
together.
that point, Ms.
and-
Gardner, we did this summer, I think, when I was out with my injury, but we did, worked with the DOE to put out a survey link for our families. We did one internally to gather information that I think helped inform the DOE deregulation piece, but we had opportunities for families to go in and provide some input on their own.
There's a young man that does an excellent job, I'm sure he's watching, and that he does an excellent job in putting out information and letting our public know, and he might be interested in this.
And how about the Superintendent's Association? Are you guys looking at the same list, hopefully, of priorities and?
Not identical, but many of the same.
Good,
That's one of
good.
the first things that we looked at was the Superintendent's Association's platform.
Okay.
So there's certain pieces in here that
All right.
represent that, but then we have some specific to Okaloosa as well.
Very
We,
good.
we did try to take some of that language and where we could turn it into specific actionable steps in terms of, you know, adding the certificate back. I don't know if that the FADS platform was more broad than that,
Yeah.
but we wanted to make sure we put things in there that we could say, check that they did this or did not.
And Dr. White, and I'm almost 100% sure that FSBA has sent all of y'all the legislative platform. If not, I can
think
make
I
sure
have
that
it.
gets into your hands. But it's pretty. We're like the fads there. I mean, we're pretty much identical. There's a couple of things in there that, you know, are specific more for Okaloosa County, and as you know, the representative for our district, I always put Okaloosa first, and then the association comes second. So.
Dr. Kelly?
Oh, I was just going to say that those priorities certainly are beneficial. Having served in 3 different schools as principal, and one of them being a title school, those topics are really incredibly important to those schools in particular, and those items as well that help us keep consistency in our faculties and our staffs, such as the extension of drop and cutting out some of those other minutia items that you alluded to. I think those will help our current sitting principals keep consistency on the faculties there, and I think that's key to student achievement, keeping those consistent bodies there, not having that semester out, semester back, or year out,
Right.
sit
Yes,
out.
ma'am.
All of those are key.
And the last thing I'd like to say, Dr. White and board, this could be 10 pages. However, because all of us could think of different items. So we talked through a number of them. This is what we landed on and feel
Priorities.
confident in terms of talking to our legislators about it, but fully aware that this could be longer or other things could be added.
And I know I appreciate that, because when we visit our colleagues, you know, our representatives in Tallahassee or even Washington, one page.
Yeah, that's right.
You need to have it down at least one page, or maybe just a little bit over, but no more than that, because they lose interest in it, you know.
We'll go smaller font and get it
Yeah.
on one.
Change the
Our
margins. and-
All right, colleagues, well, if nothing else, we'll go ahead and move to section 8. All right, 8.1, information only, employees on administrative leave. 8.2, deferred retirement option program, information. And then 8.3, out-of-field report for 23-24, presented by Ms. Duran and recommended by the superintendent. 8.4, employment separations, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.5, personnel recommendations, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.6, employee transfers, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.7, deleted, as we discussed. 8.8, employee termination, presented by Dr. Hale. 8.9, reinstatement reimbursement of sick leave, presented by Dr. Hale. And then 8.10, leave without pay, presented by Dr. Hale. No items on the discussion agenda at this time. Section 10, construction program owners, representatives, business. 10.1 is a program status report by the board's former representative.
And
Mr. Bryant.
out of respect for our incoming representative, I will actually have a report tonight, so.
Good.
Okay.
Let's go right
All right.
ahead.
Yes,
All right,
ma'am.
very good. All right, 10.2, authorization for professional services from CMI for price validation for program number 6, task order number 2, scope modification number 7, school security and fencing, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent. 10.3, funding and owner direct purchase ODP for Destin Middle School cafeteria furniture for the pre-GMP phase of task order number 34, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent. 10.4, TPM program number 6, task order number 24, scope modification number 1, Central Admin Complex renovation, phase 1, Niceville, Florida, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent. 10.5, Jacobs Titan Capital Outlay Program number 6, partial shared savings task orders number 12, number 17, number 20, and number 21, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent.
Dr. White, if
I
I
was
can
gonna-
comment on 10.5.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So obviously, y'all can see here that it's a significant savings, $3.6 million.
Do you want to share with the public really what that means? I was going to,
So I'm going to have
It's
Dr.
Dr.
Smith
Smith,
come
yes.
on up, and he is better at explaining those things than I am. That's why we have
I meant to get-
professionals in those positions.
I meant to get with him beforehand and ask, because I think this is a great thing, benefit for our district.
According to our contract that we have with Jacobs Titan, there's a split savings built into the task orders, where when the task orders come to completion, the money that is left over is split 60-40 with the school district and Jacobs Titan. This is money coming back that you can reinvest in other projects that we have going forward. It's project that you normally would not get in a regular contract.
And on the opposite side of that, Dr. Smith is explaining the piece where once the price is determined, that it does not go any higher.
That's correct. If they were to exceed in any one of these 4 GMPs, if they were to exceed that amount, they would be responsible for all those costs. So all your task orders are at risk for them.
And this has been something, a relationship and also this particular funding mechanism that we've had for quite some time, is that right?
With Titan.
Going on 30 years.
Great
Yeah,
relationship.
Yeah, and it'd be kind of interesting to know over all those years how much money has come back to the school district for reinvestment. I bet it would be a pretty sizable, pretty big number.
That's a great point, Dr. White. It would be an enormous number.
Yep, that's
Well,
awesome.
this is $3,600,000
Right.
just for these right
Just
here.
those
So
two orders,
these
right.
two.
Any other questions?
No, sir.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank
you. Doctor.
Nice work.
All right, folks, that takes us to our attorney's business. Mr. Attorney.
Only one item for tonight. The law firm of Hand Arundel Harrison, who does some work for the district, has asked us to recognize their representation of another entity who is negotiating a contract with the district, and I'll bring that to you tonight for consideration.
All right. Well, you need a motion?
Yes, sir.
To effect, okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Mr. Chambers, Superintendent Chambers, your business, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and school board members. Want to start, first of all, I want to say I have a few items that we're going to discuss, but I want to start with an update on the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation. And we have with us the president. We have Maggie Tomczyk, who's here. Also, Mr. Horton, the executive director. And then we also have Ms. Tate, who helps make this engine run. And of course, you know, Ms. Ivanchek is the school board member representing the foundation. So with that, if we'd have the appropriate folks come forward and do an Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation update.
Welcome.
Hi. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all so much for having us. While I am used to being in front of a microphone, there's usually a band behind me. So I will not be singing today. Steve said I wasn't allowed. So I'll be speaking and I'll be doing my level best. Again, thank you so much for having us. We want to give you an update. I know the board is well aware of the foundation, but we wanted to pop by and speak about the things that we have going on in support of the school district. We are a massive board made up of many wonderful and caring community members. Want to send a special thank you to Superintendent Chambers and, of course, Mrs. Ivanchek for being a continued support for the foundation. We are a nonprofit. We're a nonprofit dedicated to pushing the excellence in Okaloosa County schools. We provide opportunities to enhance teaching and learning by leveraging community support for our special programs. That's us. Look, hey, not a bad picture. You never know with these kinds of things. I want to talk to you about our staff. First of all, I want to say thank you to our attorney, Mr. McInnes, for making sure we stay out of hot water. Melissa O'Malley does an unbelievable job with the finances. I just have to imagine that all of her spices are in alphabetical order. She does a really incredible job. Christy and Miranda, dedicated to our students in the Take Stock program. Debbie Tate, without whom none of this would be possible. And of course, Steve. I've worked with Steve through the board for a few years now, and I'd just like to say that through his direction, he's done an absolutely incredible job. He's been a good friend, and I just want to let him know that we all very much appreciate all the work that he does. It was more than that, and you know it. Okay, so let's talk about what we do. We get students ready for the school year with supplies. We provide teacher grants to enhance learning so that the students stay excited about their subjects. We work on tuition scholarships and mentorship programs. We host events throughout the year for students. We support district initiatives. And then we also shine a light on what the school district is doing, all of our wins, all of our successes as a community in support of the school district. Stuff the bus. So this is the preparedness piece. Teachers, community members, 1,000-degree heat, standing outside at a Walmart begging people for crayons. So everybody works really hard to get out front and get the students ready. Obviously, not all of our students are fortunate enough to have parents that love to buy the fanciest things and are capable of such. This is an opportunity to get every student in our district ready to start the school year. And it's a lot of fun.
And you may not know this, but the United Way of Emerald Coast works with Okaloosa and Walton with this project. So we partner with them. We handle the Walmarts, the big Saturday job the foundation does, and then the United Way group works with businesses in the community. So they'll set up collection sites throughout the county to drop off during the week leading up to. So great partnership with those folks and Kelly Jason.
The teacher grant program is super exciting. I really love this one. I enjoy being on the committee that gets to review all of these grant applications every year, which I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to be doing. The public foundation, the public school foundation raises money. We get the money together. We get the teachers to write about their dreams. What would you love to do to enhance teaching science? What would you love to do to really show students about agriculture, about math, about computer science? These teachers have unbelievable ideas. They write them down, they send them to us, and we get the opportunity to read through and determine who we think has got the best idea, the best grant, and then we get to award them anywhere from $500 to $2,500 for these classroom grants. And it's really exciting to see. We get photographs, the teachers send in updates, and that's it's a really exciting way to see the students learning. So looks like we'll be awarding $50,000 to $75,000 in teacher grants this year. Holy moly, that's good money. It's going to be a lot of fun for the students too, so we like that. This is something that I have some actual confidence in speaking on because I was a mentor for a decade. I have had the honor to push 2 students out of high school. One of them is now a doctor and she's married. I guarantee you it had nothing to do with my mentorship. She was brilliant to start with. But being a mentor is such a gift, getting to be a kind of a surrogate parent. I mean, it really is a mentor. It's a teammate. It's somebody you can come to when maybe you don't want to talk to your mom. So I really enjoy that. I'm still very close with her today. We talk all the time. And my other student has moved to Colorado. She's doing really beautifully and is enrolled back in school. So I'm very proud of my girls, and this program means a lot to our students. It also means a lot to our mentors. It's a real opportunity for us to re-engage with the students in our community and do some good. Yes, Steve?
And a shameless plug. So we invest $3,900 per 2-year tuition scholarship per Take Stock student. We get matching funds from Florida Prepaid to help cover the entire cost of that 2-year scholarship. So we'll go out and raise funds through the great folks at Mid-Bay Rotary. They'll donate money to us. Or Panhandle Job Fair might donate some money and earmark it for Take Stock scholarships. Or an individual might donate to the foundation. So people essentially are buying scholarships for students as we go through the year. And then every spring we sit down and look at how many people we can add to the program, how many students, how many mentors we can gather. So you'll see the shameless plug at the end for how you can support the foundation. I know Ms. Ivanchik will chime in on that, but we're at 61 students now. I know we have scholarships for 2 more to add on to next year. We're working our way up slowly but steadily to 100. I may not see it, but we're going to get there sooner or later.
Okay. Oh, the College and Career Fair. Steve and I, it feels like we've done it for years and years, but apparently it's only been 3. This is a super fun event. The students get to come in. We get to talk to colleges one-on-one. We get to talk to recruiters. We get to talk to local businesses, national businesses, and really get them excited about their future. There's also great swag at this event. If you are a pen person or a koozie person, come to this event. It really is a great, great time. Oh, this one. This is so fun. Adulting is hard. See, we know that. Our students don't know that, but boy, do they learn it here. So this beautiful, fantastic Reality Check financial education program, we gave our students a paycheck and we said, okay, you gotta live. How do you do it? Once they got to the end, I think they realized that buying the souped up pickup truck, they probably should have paid for their electric bill instead. So this was a kind of a crash course for our students without any, harmful credit repercussions, thankfully for them. But it's a really exciting program and a lot of fun.
On that particular item there, I know myself and Miss Ivanchik were there, and this was Laurel Hill School that we did. And I was with Doug Sims, and we were in the food booth. And I was surprised to see how caring these folks were with their money. They didn't mind handing it out to charities and buying the things for others, but when they got to the food part, they realized they didn't have no money for food, so they had to figure out how they were going to
Yeah.
eat. But I mean, just that one little thing that we do, I say little, it was a huge, but it did wake them up.
It's
That, you know,
eye-opening,
yeah.
sure, absolutely.
And I will just say, once we kind of get through these two things about hosting events throughout the year, if you think about what it takes to put these together, whether it be working with 60 different businesses and having them show up, set up their tables, coordinating everything. In this piece, it's getting with the community and finding out and collaborating and getting with Channel 3, who does a news story on it. So she's back over there. I'm sitting because she wasn't going to come up here, but Miss Tate absolutely is the engine that makes this happen. So we would not be doing these programs without her. And on top of that, we have to pay for this. We provide meals for the students, breakfast and lunch when they come in. We buy those signs so that we can use them year after year. Where does that come from? It comes from grants that we apply for that Debbie is always on the alert for. And when the consortium of Florida Education Foundations, which is kind of our over us body throughout the state that supports the public schools foundations, she is the first one that says there's a grant out here, we're going to go for it, and she applies for them. And we get that funding that comes in that helps us do things, because when you have kids show up on a Saturday, you want to be able to give them something. You want to be able to feed them Chick-fil-A. You want to be able to give them some swag and a T-shirt and a bag. And so none of that would be possible without Ms. Tate running this day to day, which is what she does. Oh, so, and then this last one here is kind of a how do we provide support for both school and district initiatives? So one of the things that we've been able to do the last few years is go after funding through resiliency through the community grant, and it's not technically a grant, but through the consortium of Florida Education Foundations, they had funding that school districts could apply for. You may remember back in the spring when we kicked off the anti-vaping campaign, we were able to get some funding through the Public Schools Foundation to support the purchase of some of the vape detection devices in the restrooms. Just recently, we applied for some support to help resiliency in Okaloosa County in the form of behavior interventionists, Navigate 360, which is a software that's being used as required by statute to help our students with resiliency, tutoring support. We have 61 take stock in children students. They don't always all make A's, but they might need tutoring support. So we've gotten funding to be able to pay folks to tutor the students. We have funding to pay for transportation for students if they can't make it to a certain event that we like to host for them. Something we're doing this year is something we called Resiliency Kits for Kids. So we have a lot of food pantries and otherwise that our schools operate to help kids have food for the weekend. But one of our board members, Yvonne Shanklin, and it's true, there's a need and a gap for students just have good hygiene supplies. And so we've got some funding through this particular award to provide weekly supplies or monthly supplies for up to 250 students in the district through this program. So that's something that we're going to be implementing in the spring. The employee recognition, I wanted to give every Teacher of the Year candidate and Ed Support person $1,000, but we're going to raise more money to get there someday, but we're able to support the Teacher and Ed Support Professionals of the Year with gifts and some money for the top folks. And then even things such as the Years of Service coins that Mr. Chambers and staff give to employees, those are funded through the Public Schools Foundation just to support. So just a few of the examples there, but I'm very excited about continuing to have an ear and listen to what the school district needs are. That's kind of a unique position I'm in, because when I say I want to have a conversation with the district about what the foundation can do to help, it's a very brief one, because we're doing both of those things at the same time. So we just kind of work on that. And then promoting the great work of the school district throughout the community. So we go to Chambers of Commerce meetings regularly. We attend community gatherings. At the beginning of the year, for example, one of the churches in Fort Walton held a school readiness event, and we got folks from transportation there, folks from human resources, the foundation. Ms. Bates was there with some literacy stuff, and so bringing all those folks together to help support school readiness in the community is something we really try to do to promote the school district. We always go to our chamber meetings, and will speak on behalf of the great things that are going on in the school district. So we really like to try to promote the great work the district's doing out there.
We do have a lot of fun, which is why I'm back to talk about it. You know. No, I'm just kidding. We do have an incredible time. We have bingo. We have our pickleball tournament. This year was our first year. We raised $24,000 at our pickleball tournament. And who doesn't? I mean, pickleball. It's just fun to say. It's got to be fun to play. Barbecue and bingo. As I said, we had a bingo night. We had a blast. Barbecue was delicious. We had some big winners, and it's just a really, really good time. Highly recommend you all making it out next year. $16,000 was raised this year, so it was past 3 years. Excuse me. It's a really great time, and we want everyone involved. We're involved. Get involved, Ms. Ivanchek. I'm sure that you have something to say to everybody to motivate people to join our cause.
Well, I do.
I know.
And I usually do at most of our meetings because I am very proud of our foundation and the growth that it has had over the last few years.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that's so exciting to be on besides the activities is getting to be to know some public people from the public that are on our. I mean, we have some heavy hitters on this foundation who work out in a variety of areas and throughout Okaloosa County. And what's so great is they get to see, and that's that great link between the district and the public, which is so important. Because when people understand what you're doing, what your goal is, and they have the same goal, they're gonna work to help you. And that's what's happened, is we've had those people come through and do that. And so we have a good variety of people on this foundation. Some are former employees of the district. Some are working out now, so it's great. But everybody has that same goal. We all know that for our community, for our county, for the success of the future, it has to start with getting our kids, giving them the best. And that's what the foundation promotes, whether it be through the bingo and all that. But it's just so rewarding to see that, and it's just grown so much that it's been very impressive since I even came on the board and got with it, how far it's come. And I know it's going to continue to grow. Also, we've, I think by reaching out to so many people, we've had a lot of buy-in, even the employees who may give even $1 a paycheck, whatever they can to donate. That's so important because they have literally a buy-in. And we've reached out. I know I've gone to several schools and said, please, because I, as a teacher, was a recipient of one of the very first foundation grants. I still have my certificate. I show up and show it to people because on that very first, this is back in, here Tim's gonna get me, 90-something when I was teaching, but I got one of those first grants, and it helped my journalism students create a newspaper that we distributed to every elementary kid in this district. And it was a great project.
I remember that.
Yep, and it was a literacy project, and I got the money from the foundation. So I've known all the great things, so I get to go out there and be the poster child for, look, to these teachers, you can get this grant, and you're helping each other. So I've been wanting our foundation to come. I've said it in many meetings, when y'all come into the board, because I want everybody to see what I'm so excited about being on this foundation and what it's doing. You don't always hear, about that. We're working, but I think it's important for the public who's watching and for the rest of our board members to see all these great events that really are there that are at the foundation of success. So thank you, Maggie. You do a great job as our president.
Thank you.
And of course, Debbie Tate is a star.
She is.
Mr. Horton does pretty well.
He does. He's all right.
The girls keep
And,
them straight,
it's
the
great
ladies.
It's great to have you here and let everybody see this. Thank you.
I thank you all for having us. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And,
Thank you.
And I'll just want to say this, it's very impressive. And Mr. Bryant will remember, it wasn't so many years ago that we even talked about, Mr. Chambers, you'll remember, not having a foundation. And the turnaround that you guys have done is just magnificent.
Yeah.
And thank you, thank all of you, thank you, Superintendent, and Ms. Ivanchek as well for having this program that is so beneficial to so many. Thank you again.
And
Dr.
we need
White.
to remember it's all
Yes,
through
sir.
donations.
Yes, sir.
This is, and you mentioned your grant, and so often these teachers would be out of pocket doing some of these things that you're talking about, where your organization is helping them not pull money out of their pockets. Thank you.
Yeah, and another way you can support is get the cool license plate.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I know several of us have the cool license plate,
right.
so that's an easy way. Go and just,
Well, I want one of those bags, then I can promote the license plate if I'm holding
I
it
got the
back.
bag. Yep, we'll have to get her a
I
bag.
talk about
It's
swag,
coming to
I
you.
like swag.
Yes,
All the
we
way.
can work that out. Thank
All
you
right,
all.
thank you, thank you. All right, anything else, Superintendent?
Yes, a few fun announcements, and then one a little bit more serious. But I do want to say it's an exciting time of the year, as you know. We have several of our athletic teams that are in the playoffs, and really that ranges from the cross country to the football to volleyball to dance to cheer. So there's a lot that is going on right now, and we do have a huge announcement that I'd like to make that I won't make because I'm sure Ms. Ivanchek will say something about that in a little bit. So, but a lot of success that's happening across the school district. We talk about what's an A-plus school district: academics, athletics, and the arts. The athletics make a big difference in the lives of many kids, and they have experiences that they would not experience if it wasn't for the opportunity to play a sport. And that's cheer, dance, football, cross country, and so forth. So just couldn't be more proud of our students. I'd also like to say we're starting a new initiative this year during the Thanksgiving time and the Christmas time. So this Thursday, we will be providing approximately 120 turkey dinners to families across this school district. And that is in part to you, the board, and also our partners, Jacobs Titan and Florida Power and Light. So we will be providing approximately 120 families with Thanksgiving meals on this Thursday. I believe it was 3 per school, and a couple, maybe just a little bit more. But we're excited about starting that initiative. Ms. Card is really taking the lead on that to really get that going. And as you know, there's a lot of organization that goes into doing that. And then also during the Christmas time, Ms. Card will be leading as well with all of our schools and our partners, gifts for students. So we will be working with our schools, looking at students and what they would like for Christmas, and then we'll be working with community agencies and others to be able to get those types of gifts for students who may not have the opportunity to do so. You know, you're full well that a lot of our high schools do this, a lot of our middle schools do this, and this is an extra layer at the district level. So I just want to thank our school board members for your support in this venture and really doing all that we can do to make the holiday season bright for our students. Do want to say that the Catch the Wave newsletter went out last week, so a lot of good information goes out to not only our employees but also to our families. And then I would like to talk a little bit more of a more serious tone. As you know, we're blessed here in Okaloosa County to have a Safe Schools office. And within our Safe Schools office, we're also blessed to have sheriff deputies, former sheriff deputies, led by Mr. Danny Dean. And Mr. Dean, as you might know, he's actually the chair of the Florida, I'll just call it Safe Schools office, that has recently been developed. So Danny Dean is the chair for the entire state of Florida. And as you know, approximately 2 weeks ago, we had what we now know was, in essence, a swatting call or a hoax call. And that is something that we took extremely seriously. So 2 weeks ago, as you know, we're at the Ed Support breakfast. And it was cut short a little bit for some of us because we had Baker School that was in a lockdown. And then Crestview ended up going into a lockdown. Within that, Davidson actually went into a lockdown, and then Richburg and Northwood, to lesser extents, went into lockdown. So this hoax call, this swatting call, created a lot of angst throughout this school district. And I do want to make a couple comments, and as you know, it's safety, so I can't make all the comments. But I do want to say, when I got to Crestview High School and saw the overwhelming response of our sheriff's department, of the Florida Highway Patrol, of the Crestview Police Department, and even the Fort Walton Beach Police Department, one officer left his hunting stand because he heard the call and came straight to the school. The overwhelming response that was at Crestview, that was at Baker, and the officers that were sent to all of the North End schools in totality, that was quite impressive to see. I couldn't be more thankful for the Sheriff's Department in taking the lead on that day. For not choosing my words, I'll say it was a scary event. But what made it possible was the fact that the Sheriff's Department, Mr. Danny Dean and his department, and I'll say just as important, and maybe even more important, was the work that our teachers, our staff, and our administrators did at those schools to go into an actual lockdown. The training that occurs each month, if that's not taken seriously, things don't go well. And I will not say that that 2 weeks ago Friday was perfect. There's definitely things that we can learn from the event, and we did learn and we will put into place. But the response from schools to the agencies was impressive. I'll also say, as a district, we did a debrief to say what went well and what can we do better. The Sheriff's Department and the agencies did the same, and then we also met with those agencies, with the school district, to say what went well and what can we do even better. I do want to say to the board that the sheriff and I, later this week, will be doing a video where we will be talking about these fake calls, and whether that's a student that places a fake call or whether it's an adult out in the community that places a fake call that poses a threat to our schools, that every measure of our school district and every measure of the law will be applied to those individuals. This is not something that we take lightly, and on a sense of pride to be able to see what was happening at Crestview High School that day, and it was taken very seriously by everybody. But I couldn't be more thankful for the teachers, for the staff, for the administrators to go right into action. Danny Dean and his group, normally you would think you're doing this for one school. This was going on across multiple schools. And to have the organization of his staff and the other schools is just quite impressive. And again, just very thankful to the sheriff and his team for their support. And again, there's things that we can do better and that we'll learn from. But quite frankly, I'm extremely proud of the response and the way our school district, specifically those schools, those teachers, staff, and administrators, and those students, what the students did, I wish I could talk about a little bit more, but what the students did was also quite impressive.
I would say the media, which you were able to get out, because what was going on in Crestview, there was a ripple effect throughout the district, because there were schools in the south end that were sending me and some parents what's going on, what's happening, because of everything that was going on in Crestview and just in our day in this world. So things were coming out, what could be released. That was quick, and I know Ms. Card probably had a lot to do with that, and the Sheriff's Department, just to reassure parents that it's under control or what's going on or possibly a hoax. So that was, so that, thank you for the media part of that and getting that out to parents, because that was a rippling effect.
Well, the amount of communication that was occurring on that day, it takes a full team to be able to do so. You mentioned Danny Dean. You just mentioned Ms. Card, Mr. Mers as well, taking
Yes.
off communication
That was
from the
key.
school so that they could focus on what they needed to focus on. But so many different individuals working together. There was some misinformation out there, I think from the very beginning. Tried very hard to get the actual information out. I think our new technology systems allowed us to communicate with families directly, not only through call-out, but also through text. So a lot was going on that day.
I'd just like to make a comment that you haven't said, that I want to remind the public that even though in your position, Mr. Chambers, you rely on professionals in those, I mean, you're not a law enforcement person, you're an educator, this is what you do. And when things come up that affect the safety of our students or our employees, that you have communication and lean on. For example, if it's a weather issue, you go with emergency management, Mr. Maddox. And in this case, you were law enforcement, that you don't arbitrarily make decisions on the way things go as the superintendent, that you rely on that information from those professionals and what to do with the school district. And you maybe didn't want to say that, but I would like to say that, because I think sometimes individuals jump to it and think it's you, and it's not you, it's not this board, it's not the district. We rely on those professionals. That's their job, that's what they do, like Mr. Dean, he's trained to do that. I don't know about that. He tells us this is what's the best thing to do, and sometimes when some individuals want to jump away from that and say this and this and this, that causes a lot of confusion that's not necessary, because you're going to always, as this board will and the district, go to those professionals that are going to give us the best information for the safety of all concerned. We're not going to just arbitrarily decide it on our own. And so they need to keep that in mind.
And having that debriefing afterwards, it's very important, critical, to always work out.
Dr.
where
White,
we
if I
can
could
help.
comment to the
Yes, sir.
superintendent. You know, seeing that Crestview was the center of what was going on that day, I will just say that this is a great opportunity for parents, guardians, everybody who has a vested interest in the schools. Please make sure your information is up to date so we can get that communication to you. And also, not everything you see on social media is the truth.
Really? Really?
It is not the truth. So please do not rely on social media for your information. And in this case, because a lot of misinformation was put out on social media, it did cause a lot of angst, like Mr. Chambers said, at Crestview High School, at the schools that were locked down. But I will just say that the response, like Mr. Chambers said, was phenomenal. But I will also say that the leadership of our school district, a lot of us, all of us were down in Shalimar at that time when things were starting to take shape. And Mr. Chambers and Mr. Horton made their way up to Crestview and had the opportunity to talk to parents as they were waiting in line trying to get their children checked out, and trying to reassure them that their children were safe. And I just think that was amazing within itself, that our leadership, not just with them, but other people who were up there within the school district that were taking time to console those parents, console the guardians, those people who were, were wondering what was going on. I thought that spoke volumes to the level of compassion. But I also feel like that a lot of the information that was being put out there kind of made the situation, could have made it a lot worse if it was actually going on. If there was an active shooter or anything going on in the school, that would have made it a lot worse if we would have had 100, 200, 300, 400 parents, trying to get into the school. So I would just encourage everybody to update your information, make sure that you're getting your personal information to us, that we can give you the correct information. And don't, again, social media isn't the end all to be all, but that, but I think our communication made it easier on a lot of people who had that, who were able to get that information. But like I said, thank you to you and your leadership, and to everybody who is under you in that role, to really make the situation, could have been a lot worse. But I think with the compassion and the sincerity, I think a lot of people were really appreciative of how we handled that. So,
I just want to add to your social media that if you are looking at social media, look to see who's sending it out. Is it coming from the Sheriff's Department? Is it coming from the Okaloosa County School District? Or is it coming from John and Jane Doe from Timbuktu or whatever? But look who is actually sending out that communication.
And Mr. Dean, if you'd come forward for a second. Again, we talked about Mr. Dean from the Safe Schools Office. I'll share with you, he was worth his weight in gold the other day. But is there anything that you would like to share as it pertains to this topic?
Mr. Superintendent, I would just echo what you said. It was overall a phenomenal response. It's a multi-agency response. I can't thank all of our law enforcement agencies in Okaloosa County for their actions that day. We did conduct, as Mr. Chambers said, we did conduct both internal after-action reviews as well as an after-action review with our public safety agencies, both law enforcement and medical response as well with our EMS representatives. That was conducted, and as Mr. Chambers said, overwhelmingly phenomenal response, but we will always strive to do even better, and we will get down in the weeds as we did in this after-action review. And I think it is worth saying that for us getting down in the weeds goes to show what a relationship that we have with our public safety agencies, the communication, the response, the incident command, the unified command in this particular situation with the school district and multiple public safety agencies, that when we conduct an after-action review that we're actually getting down into the weeds, that we're not looking at what went wrong overall operationally, but we're actually getting down to the finite details of how we can improve upon what we're already doing exceptionally well. Thank you.
And I just have just one question. I'm just curious about it, and it's been a matter of public record that the Okaloosa County Commissioners and this school board has spent a significant sum of money on communication, multi-communication devices. And I'm curious, were those of an asset in this particular event?
Absolutely, and I thank this board as well as our Board of County Commissioners for their support of those communication systems. We have redundancy in communication systems. That's very important for emergency response. If you have one, you have none. If you have two, you have one, is the philosophy. And we utilized those redundant systems and even identified ways that we can improve on utilizing those systems in the future.
Awesome.
I'd also like to say real briefly about the superintendent's initiative over this past summer, where our office was actually tasked with improving upon our existing communication systems with regard to parent notifications.
Mm-hmm.
Parents will remember some of the letters and things that went out going into the new school year. And coordinating between the Office of Safe Schools and our communications department and streamlining those notification processes. I can't thank you enough from an incident command standpoint of being at that command post location and being able to make that one phone call to our communications department and have all of that already aligned as how we're going to do that and disseminate information. Information got out extremely fast, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. I just remember the days when I had the Radio Shack walkie-talkies.
We've come a long way, Dr.
Yeah,
White.
I was gonna say, now
It
now
would
I
never
think,
fail the batteries would go
yeah.
out about that time.
That antenna had to be pointed at it right.
Yeah, now I think you're actually able to communicate with the various agencies directly.
Yes, sir.
And that's awesome.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
And the last thing I'd say on this topic is, as the Sheriff's Department, they were the incident command group. And I just want to thank Sheriff Aiden. Just fantastic. Since that Friday, we've been on the phone multiple times, and they are still actively and aggressively pursuing the individual who did this.
Did I see a $10,000 reward?
I can't speak to the
Okay.
reward, but
Seems like there was a nice sizable award for,
just know they're actively pursuing it. That's all I have, Dr. White.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, so that brings us down to board members' business, announcements, and requests for information. And so we'll just go around the table. I'll start today and just say congratulations to the Choctawhatchee football Indians and their continued playoff request. And so we'll be following that closely in the coming days and weeks. All right, so Ms. Gardner, how about you, ma'am? Do you have anything?
Yeah, Dr. Watt, I think we can pretty much in all of our districts have high schools that have done very well and heading to state. And Fort Walton Beach High School, the Viking cross country, the girls are headed to state. They were the district champs, and the boys placed third. And the Viking swim team, the boys were at state, they were 6th, the girls were at 17th. There were 8 top swims with 13 out of 15 swims, and they scored 5 new school records. So very proud of our all of our students that are participating in our track and in our swim. And also tomorrow, hopefully the rain will hold off, there will be a ribbon cutting ceremony at Elliott Point to celebrate the addition to the 8 new classrooms, the bus ramp, the parking. I've had the opportunity to see that, and it is just, I mentioned before, so exciting to see what's going on right there, and it's all due to the half-cent sales tax. So anyone who would like to attend, you're invited. They ask that you're there by 9 a.m. Promptly, 9:15, that ribbon will be cut. So I do encourage others to come out and see what your half-cent sales tax is doing for these students. And if you see the students' face, as I said, it's just so rewarding. Also, and I know all of my colleagues here received this, but Ms. Kilpatrick with the field, who is the field supervisor for our nutrition group, I was looking at her monthly newsletter, and I think it's called Bringing the Cafeteria to You. But October the 9th through the 13th is National School Week. But as I was looking through that and seeing what our nutrition group is doing, they're not only just putting out food for the students, they are actively involved. And how they're decorating the serving line, they're going out and they're educating the students. They were doing things, I think what was it, Wellness on Wednesdays for the month of October for students that were at Edge, Longwood, and Walker. They are educating these students on nutrition and inviting, it's encouraging, they're actively working with our students. And I had the opportunity last year, a school invited me for their Thanksgiving dinner, and it was good. It was, I think, the only Thanksgiving dinner I had, honestly. But just a shout out to them for what they're doing. I know they'll be doing Thanksgiving meals this week, and that's thousands of children, parents, grandparents. It's just a mass of people, and if you ever get to see this or participated, it is a well-oiled machine. And how they get all these individuals through there and the stations of food. But just like to thank them for what they do and just do a shout out with them. Thursday, Thanksgiving is 23rd, and just to remind everybody, school's out for the week, November 20th through the 24th. We just celebrated Veterans Day, and we have so much to be thankful for. And when you look at what's going on in our world and all the unrest, I'm just very blessed at where we live, the people we work with, our families, and just like to wish everybody have a safe and a happy Thanksgiving. Rest up, because we'll be back in December, and we all know how busy that month is. I think that's all my notes I've scribbled here, so
All right, thank you, Ms. Gardner. Ms. Avancha.
Okay. Well, I've never made it myself shy about supporting my Baker Gators, and it's to win a state championship. Any team, any person, we all know what that takes. It's a long, long road with a lot of work, and so in 2020, the Baker Gators football team did a state championship, and that was my first one as their school board member, so that was pretty thrilling. But last week, about did me in waiting for these ladies to win this state championship in volleyball. It was just, they are just fun to watch play. They do it so well and with so much fun that you just are so glad to be there. But I have to say, it did age me looking at some of those sets, and it's so close, and they just show no qualms, nothing. That doesn't seem to bother them at all. I'm crazy, but along with their principal and everything, their coach is fine. But the Lady Gators won their first volleyball 1A state championship last Tuesday, and I'm thrilled for them. The volleyball program at Baker has quite a storied history. I want to give you just a little bit of the statistics. They have had 31 consecutive tournament appearances. They've won the district championship for 21 consecutive years.
That's amazing.
14 regional championships. They've been the state runner-up 6 times, including last year. And going into this tournament, they were on a 7-game winning streak. Now, the current coach, Chelsea Medley, her mother, Kathy Combest, for many years had this program, so they've passed that down by generation. And I don't know how many teams are in the 1A division, but there are 8 districts, and they had to go through all that, eliminating and so forth. The other thing is, of course, our district for the state championship has to travel. They had to travel to Winter Haven, so that's always an extra. And they stayed there 2 days because it was one of those, you win and you keep going. So I want to congratulate not only those girls, the team, but Coach Medley, Coach Davis, Principal Martello, and that administrative staff, and the parents and community that came out for these girls, starting with sending them off at 5:30 in the morning on that Sunday to giving them money to be able to travel. It's expensive being a champion or going into playoffs, and showing up and giving them a lot of support. And you know, it's not only a win for Baker School, but this is a win for Okaloosa County. When our teams go off, whether it be an individual student or a group, it does a lot for our county when they win these championships and bring it home. So I am, of course, extremely proud. They brought me back a shirt, and I didn't do anything to win anything, but I appreciate them thinking of me. And this Friday, they're and the medal, which I'm not going to wear because I didn't earn this, but I'm glad to show it. And they won it. Those girls earned it. And I tell you one thing about these ladies, when you see them, they are fierce competitors. And you'll see them in a game on a Tuesday night, fierce competitors, and then you see them Friday night, and they're in the homecoming court with a gown on. And it's just amazing. They're just beautiful. And I just got word that the captains of the team, that's Chloe Yates and Lily Adams, have been chosen for the Florida All-State Volleyball Academic Team. So they're smart, they're beautiful, they're fierce, and they're just wonderful students. And they're constantly thanking people, and they're appreciative of the support they get from parents, community, and their teachers and everything. So this is exciting for Okaloosa County, and I am just grateful that I'm their school board member and get to have that small part of it. And then Friday, they're having a big pep rally and fun time, and I plan to be there, and you're welcome to join me. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Evancho.
Yep.
All right, Dr. Kelly.
Thank you, Dr. White. Well, I'll just add to that, that great news about Baker bringing home the gold. That's wonderful. We're always excited when any of our teams
That's
can
right.
do that for
Thank you.
Okaloosa County and for themselves. And when you were talking about those girls, it made me think that they are the demonstration, the living, breathing evidence of the A+ in our A+ school district ranking.
That's right.
So
Good.
thank you for speaking about them. So I would like to also add congratulations to our winning art students. Third place winner was from Pryor Middle School, Faith Youngma, for her acrylic drawing. Second place was from Bruner Middle School, Kendall Thompson, for her pastel work. And the first place winner was from Liza Jackson, Zane Reese, for her pencil drawing. And of course, congratulations to the Niceville High School Eagles for their 55-21 win over Nice, and that moves them forward. We don't know what might happen there, but I'm
We will
looking
see some
forward to
more.
great things coming again to our district from Niceville High School. And we are just a smidge over a week from Thanksgiving, and I know that everyone will enjoy that holiday break. I hope they do, with family and friends and relatives. And just to note that tonight I'll have to miss because I plan to head out to Atlanta to be with that grandson while their parents attend to some work obligations. But I'm very happy to know that things are being left in good hands. So thank you.
Well, I hope so.
That's all that I have, Dr. White.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Mr. Bryant.
Thank you, Dr. White. And I would just like to capitalize on the A+ mantra there about the arts. So after our last school board meeting, we had the all-county choir that I was fortunate enough to be able to run over and watch and listen. Unfortunately, you can't record that and put it on Facebook because of the licensing and all, but they were amazing, amazing. Just to hear those students only get to work together for just a few weeks and be able to go up there and do what they did, I thought was just incredible. Also, staying with the arts, you know, we talk about the fine arts as far as our theater programs, and you know, I talk about this all the time that Beth and I, we love to make date nights and go to as many of the theatrical performances as we can. And you know, during the first part of the year, there is schools that actually do presentations, not all, but some do. And we had the opportunity to go to Niceville High School to watch their presentation of the 12 Angry Jurors, which was a takeoff of 12 Angry Jurors, Angry Men, yes.
Haven't felt that.
Yes. So they did a great job of doing that. But I, you know, it just tells you the amount of dedication and love and passion that these folks that head up our arts, whether it be our bands, our choirs, our theaters, or you know, artistic with the paintings and all, you know, just to see that level of dedication is why we can put that in our A+ status there, because we do have some great art programs out there. And I encourage everybody, you know, take an opportunity to go visit a school when they do their theater, or they do their choirs or their band, you know, because you will be, you will definitely enjoy to see what our students are accomplishing out there and the leaders who help propel them to that excellence, as we would like to say. And also, you know, this morning we had our organizational meeting, and, you know, congratulations to my colleagues, Dr. White and Ms. Ivanchek for chairman and vice chair. But I would just also like to say again how much we appreciated Dr. Kelly and her leadership. You know, she did an outstanding job this year leading us. And, you know, you hear her talk about the Hope Squad. She had a full schedule, and to also be able to be the chair, that takes a lot of dedication. And, you know, once you're in that chairmanship position, it's a lot of work. And to be able to juggle that, and she talks about her precious grandchild, you know, all of that to do what she did, you know, I would just like to say once again how much we appreciated you. And enjoy tonight.
I will.
Because that grandbaby is special. And just to kind of answer.
I was gonna, yep.
I'll be-
I was gonna say
My
something.
granddaughter is not here yet. Tomorrow is actually the due date, but only the Lord knows when that time's going to come. But thank you for everybody who's asked, and extended prayers.
life-changing, Mr. Brown.
It
Well, it'd be
does.
nice to
Life-changing.
be
Your
able to-
priority changes
Yes,
completely.
Yes. And with that, Dr. White, thank you for the time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Bryant. All right, colleagues, so that'll go ahead and take us to section 14, public comment, and that'll be the yellow cards. And then we do have a couple of public hearings. Ms. Evangeline, help me remember those
Okay.
tonight as we
I
get
will
rolling.
help you.
15.1,
6:50.
public hearing for adoption of revised school board policy 0809, duties, ethics, professional conduct, presented by Dr. Hale, recommended by the superintendent. And then 15.2, public hearing for adoption of resolution 23-10, approving the proposed real estate purchase and sale agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and Ziffman Partners Incorporated in this capacity as the court-appointed receiver of Legacy Lifestyles Destin property, a Delaware limited liability company, for a parcel of real property located at 401 Beach Drive, Destin, Florida, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent for approval. And with that, unless there's anything else, this meeting is adjourned.